They had a YCS on Saturday, which actually was streamed. I tuned into the stream just for a little bit. I didn't catch much of it. When I tuned into the stream, the first thing that happened was Malice going first. Opponent activated Max C. Malice player activated Called by the Grave and won the game. So I turned off the stream. Anyways, OCG YCS results. For context, YCS Japan, because they are so big usually, in this case 5,000 participants, is a best of one tournament. So no side deck, and they're doing 9 rounds of Swiss with 5,000 people, meaning I'm pretty sure you have to go undefeated to be guaranteed in top 64. I don't know if 8-1 is even guaranteed in this kind of thing. And then a top 64 bracket, and it's all best of one from start to finish. And I'm pretty sure you have to go undefeated to be guaranteed, and then like 8-1 you have to have like good tiebreakers, I think. Anyways, Dragon Tail was the most represented deck in top 64, which is just following up on a trend that we've seen recently. With Dragon Tail being the most played and anticipated or most hyped deck currently in the OCG out of Justice Hunters. We have it followed up by Malice, we have it followed up by Tenpai, and we have it followed up by Yummy. And to nobody's surprise, if you host a best of one tournament, the 2 finalists are both on Tenpai. First and second place in this best of one tournament was Tenpai Dragon. Even though the top cut was not super dominated by Tenpai, it was definitely up there, but it was not the most represented deck in top cut. But ultimately, you're gonna play a best of one tournament in Yu-Gi-Oh at the moment. Tenpai Dragon is everywhere. Like it's pretty solved in TCG and OCG for the most part. You know, Tenpai Dragon is not dominating the formats. We're gonna look at the metagame breakdown in a second as well, but just for quick context, you know, there's no Tenpai Dragon anywhere here in the overall metagame breakdown, because this is regular tournaments where they play best of 3. In this tournament, Tenpai. And when I looked at this deck list this morning, when I opened the page, I got a mini heart attack because they got 3 Kaimen still? You're telling me OCG has got 3 Sangan Kaimens? That's crazy. That is crazy. So yeah, this is the deck that won YCS Japan. I cannot imagine playing a best of one YCS with 5,000 people where you have to go undefeated and Sangan Kaimen is at 3. Imagine you like, I don't know, you go like 7-0 and then round 8 your opponent just opens Max C, you don't have an out, and then you just get Kaimened. Disgusting. Anyways, Tenpai first, Tenpai second. Magistus Dragon Tail got to top 4. Yummy got to top 4, so the new Justice Hunter archetypes definitely pulling up here, except for K9. K9 not super strong in this best of one tournament, it seems like. Did not perform super well, but got some new Magistus support here in Dragon Tail, which is looking pretty sick. We got some Yummy here, which is not using the Sky Striker engine, actually, which is surprising, but it is what it is. Well, the K9 cards, at least, they are showing up as like I think it's like a hand trap engine, right? Like the 2 level 5s together. It's like kind of like a gamma driver situation, which that has made its way into some decks, like in this one. But the deck itself, the K9 deck, is not super popular. And then Malice with the new Ad Ignister support is obviously still going very strong. Ryzeal is basically non-existent. Was there even a single Ryzeal here anywhere? No. There's like some White Forest here, some Atlantean, but no more Ryzeal at the moment in the OCG. So yeah, we're going to take a closer look at Malice post Alliance Insight, I think at some point this week, starting next week, because I do want to like this week I want to focus a little bit on the current situation at TCG, or like today, and then soon I want to start looking at Alliance Insight stuff, because that is obviously what's going to shake up the metagame again in the TCG for us and for national season as well. So we're going to take a closer look at what changes for Malice and Ryzeal and for the game in general post Alliance Insight. There's an Atlantean deck here still. They still play Bahamut Shark even though they don't have Toad. They play like they summon Lavirtue Dragon. White Forest is here, which is obviously still a scary deck to go second against. So like I feel like in best of one, it's pretty scary. It's a pretty good deck against Tenpai as well, I think, White Forest. That's why I feel like it was decent in a best of one environment. If you're expecting other people to play Tenpai, then White Forest I think is a pretty good shout. Malice, Yummy, Malice, Striker, Tenpai, Yummy. Yeah, and that's about it. About what we have for the YCS. It's always like I understand why they're going for best of one in these tournaments. Logistically, like I get it. You know, your tournament is huge and it's only for one day as well. Like this is only on April 12th. This is only the Saturday. And you somehow have to find a winner out of 5,000 people. So it's like, I kind of get it. At the same time, the results I feel like are so skewed because of it. It's just so hard to evaluate what this means because it is very, very different from any sort of Yu-Gi-Oh that's being played anywhere else, right? Like it's not the same as OCG because it's not best of 3. It's very different to Master Duel because the card pool is so different, and obviously we don't have the cards yet in TCG, and it's also not best of 3. So I don't know. It's very hard to evaluate this, but it looks like TLDR regular OCG format plus Tenpai is like is revived because of best of 1. Is all I have to say. So I think the more interesting part is to just take a look at the overall metagame in the OCG past weeks, which is this one, where it's just compiling deck lists from best of 3 tournaments, basically. And here we have basically the same picture minus Tenpai, right? It's still Malice, Dragon Tail, Yummy, some K9, Crystron, Blue Eyes, and White Forest. So like, that's the current OCG metagame, it looks like, if you're going to your local OCG tournaments or whatever. Well, let's take a look at, because this I'm interested in, particularly in Malice, because of course for our national season, Dragon Tail and Yummy are not going to be out yet, and K9. But Malice is going to receive these support cards very soon, so this is going to be very relevant for us. We're going to take a look at the current TCG format as well, because Malice was actually doing surprisingly strong on this past weekend in the TCG post-ban list. So it receiving even further support is quite something. So here we see Malice received a hit in the recent OCG limit regulation, with Malice P Dormouse being limited. Most players are replacing it with additional copies of Malice Chessy Cat to maintain the same amount of Malice monsters in the main deck. Dimension Shifter is the key card of this format, as both Dragon Tail and Yummy rely on the graveyard for their gameplay, and many Malice builds are now running it in the main deck. Wonderful. Retaliating Sea in the side deck is specifically teched against Dragon Tail. The activation of K2 Dragon Tail, Rahu Dragon Tail, and Polymerization all enable Retaliating Sea to be chained, causing the fusion materials to be banished instead of going to the graveyard, resulting in the Dragon Tail monsters to be unable to activate. Yeah. So this is something. Retaliating Sea appears to be a pretty good counter to Dragon Tail. So keep that in mind for when we get that deck. Artifact Lancia remains a key tech in the side deck against Malice, which continues to be a top contender in the new format. This is something that I'm going to take a closer look at in the upcoming days once we get to Alliance Insight, because from what I've heard, once again, this is not me experiencing it firsthand. This is something I've talked to some people about Alliance Insight format. I think Pack also mentioned this in the recent podcast episode. If you haven't checked that one out yet, we had Pack on the podcast to talk about the current and upcoming format. And Pack said Malice, with the new Adignista support, actually doesn't care about Lancia anymore. At least not as much. So that is something we're actually going to have to look into. Like, maybe Artifact Lancia is not as good against Malice as it used to be post-Alliance Insight. But they're still using it in the OCG. Super Polymerization is a tech against Malice and Yummy. Mud Dragon of the Swamp in particular is very effective against Yummy, as their disruptions are targeting effects Running Instant Fusion in the main deck to special Mud Dragon is a personal tech choice. Declaring and changing Mud Dragon to Dark makes it so Malice and Dark Link monsters become untargetable. Dimensional Barrier can be used against most of the format's top contender by declaring Fusion against Dragon Tail, Synchro against Yummy, and Xyz against K9. Dimensional Barrier is a card that the more, like, I feel like we've, in the TCG, we have slowly but surely started to get rid of some of these cards that have just aged very poorly. And I think Dimensional Barrier is up on the chopping block next, potentially. Because, like, in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, I feel like it is more and more and more, it's getting, like, increasingly more important that decks have proper locks, of course. Like, we know this, right? And, like, the more decks they make, like, there's, like, it's basically, I'm just noticing a trend where Dragon Tail is basically a deck that's very heavily focused on fusions. Yummy is a deck that's very heavily focused on synchros, even though it has some links in it. And K9 is obviously super focused on exceeds. So, like, a lot of new decks, in order to have them be balanced, quote unquote, they will focus on one summoning mechanic. And sometimes even lock you out of the other summoning mechanics. And so D-Barrier just becomes increasingly more powerful and increasingly more toxic the more decks are in the game that basically function like Branded. You know, like Branded was one of the instances where, like, you are basically limited to only fusions. And that is a problem when D-Barrier is a thing. So I don't know. I think we got rid of stuff like Dweller. We got rid of stuff like we got Shifter to 1 at least. So I think D-Barrier is a potential contender for future ban lists. I don't know. It wasn't as popular this past format, which is why I think they didn't hit it now. But I could really see around the release of Justice Hunters, I could see Dimensional Barrier, like, at least going to 1 or something. Blackout Laughs is another option against Yummy by declaring Yummy Snatchy to shut down their whole game plan. Yummy Snatchy fetches the field spell, enables synchro summoning during the opponent's main and battle phase, and is also used as the tuner monster for synchro summoning the Yummy Synchros. Okay. So they're not actually going into much detail in regards to Malice in particular, but I suppose Malice has been around for a long time, so nothing really, there's no fundamental changes to Yummy here, to Malice. They're just, like, replacing the Dormouse with more Chessy Cats, which, you know, it is at the end of the day just a consistency. So it's not going to make the deck weaker, except for less powerful. Just going to make Cheshire Cat or Chessy Cat instead, to rely on some 2-card combos maybe. Not playing any Bestials at the moment in the OCG, which is interesting. Maybe also due to not much Fiendsmith here, right? Like, they have some hits on the Fiendsmith engine already. So Fiendsmith is not as relevant as it is for us, which maybe, like, I mean, Bestials and Malice are really nice in the TCG at the moment because they cover, like, both grounds, right? Anti-Fiendsmith and Extender, which I guess in this deck they're just choosing to play the New March here instead. But yeah. Dragon Tail. Let's look at Dragon Tail. Dragon Tail is a new theme from deck build pack Justice Hunters based around fusions. We know this already. The fusion summon mechanic by default is negative in terms of card advantage, as it requires 2 materials and a fusion spell to fusion summon, turning 3 cards into 1. Dragon Tail recoups the card at disadvantage by having the Dragon Tail effect monsters have a graveyard effect that sets a Dragon Tail spell trap from deck when used as material for a fusion. And Dragon Tail Altherion's effect can also retrieve monsters from the graveyard up to the monsters used from hand. Dragon Tail takes 2 to 3 cards to start their plays, but would be able to quickly generate card advantage through their fusion summons. Dragon Tail Altherion could add any monster from the graveyard to hand and can also reuses hand traps such as Maxi or Lancia. A combo opening with Dragon Tail Lucius and a monster card is as follows. Normal summon Lucius. Lucius adds Femena from deck to hand. Femena is the one that you can discard to make a fusion, I think. Discard itself for cost. Dragon Tail on field plus monster in hand makes Altherion. Altherion adds Femena from graveyard to hand. Lucia's effect sets Rahu Dragon Tail from deck to spell trap. Activate Rahu Dragon Tail, which is, I think, their 50% branded fusion. Like 1 from hand, 1 from deck. Use the Femena in hand and Urgula from deck to make Dragon Tail Grammel. And then you get your traps from the deck, I think. Yeah. And then you use Urgula's graveyard effect to go to the bottom and add the 5 mana back to your hand. So like you have both trap cards, I'm pretty sure. Plus you have the quick effect fusion in hand, which is pretty neat. It's pretty efficient, you know. It's like, it's also considering under Fuva, this is just 2 summons, right? Just 2 draws, because you just use your extra deck twice. And you could potentially stop after the first one if you wanted to. So that's neat. So that's what Dragon Tail is all about. I think it's just using, it has a very decent amount of non-engine, and it's choosing to use those slots for monster hand traps. I think that's why this deck, for example, is not using infinite impermanence. So that you can, like, whatever hand traps you draw, you can add them back from your graveyard. Outside of like Fuva, that wouldn't make much sense to add back because you're going to have stuff on the field. But like Ash, Bell, Maxi, Nibiru will eventually end up in the graveyard. Bestials will eventually end up in the graveyard. So like you can get them back. So that's neat. And then we have Yummy. Yummy is also a new theme deck from Justice Hunters based around synchros. The twist of being able to use Link once as a level 1 tuner. The Yummy effect monsters can special summon from the hand while you control a Link 1 or a level 2 synchro, allowing them to quickly amass on the field for their synchro plays. A combo opening with Cookie Yummy and a card is as follows. Normal summon Cookie, link Cookie into Snatchy, that's their Link 1 that gets them the field spell. Place Yummy'sment minion from deck to the field zone. Minion effect to special Cookie from Cookie from the graveyard. Snatchy plus Cookie make Cupsy. Wait, Cupsy? I thought Cupsy was the main deck monster. Oh, this is... Is there 2 Cupsies? Oh, Cupsy Yummy and Cupsy Yummy Way is a different card. Okay. Cupsy Yummy Way effect. Add Cupsy Yummy and Lollipo Yummy from deck to hand. Discard 1 card. Special summon Cupsy from hand. Alright, dude, tell me what you... Okay, dude, I'm not reading 27 steps. Yummy. Dino Wrestler Pancratops in the side deck is a tech against Yummy. Special summoning Dino Wrestler Pancratops from hand does not create a chain block, and thus the opponent would not be able to respond with Herald of the Arclight. Or the Yummy Synchro Monster. Oh, okay, so Yummy... It seems like Yummy relies on like stuff to respond to your opponent, is what they're saying. So like Pancratops is good because it doesn't start a chain. So you just put it on the field and run over their stuff. Attack over Arclight and then destroy Snatchy. Yeah. Evenly matched is a tech against Dragon Tail. The 2 Dragon Tail traps are good against monsters and spells. Most of the fusion monsters that Dragon Tail can summon are against monsters, so Dragon Tail does have a weakness to traps. Anti-spell Fragrance in the side deck to protect your board against the opponent's dark rule. You know, I just want to say one thing. One thing I really like about this, and it goes past and what these decks do and how their decks are being played. I feel like it is a sign of a healthy Yu-Gi-Oh deck when the cards that people are using to counter it is like Pancratops and evenly matched. I feel like that tells you a lot about these strategies when it's not like, oh, against this deck, your outs, you have to play like, whatever, like infinite hand traps or dark ruler is the only way you can beat that board or whatever. I feel like when cards like Pancratops and evenly show up, it's usually not a bad sign in terms of the archetypes balancing. Because like, I'm not saying these decks are bad. Like most decks have weaknesses, but the weakness being evenly matched or the weakness being Pancratops is, it feels healthier to me than Lancia or something. They have 3 anti-spell. Dude, the OCG is the Wild West at this point. Or yeah, even though it's not in the West. Like, it's just friggin' everything's legal. Like, I played against a... like you log into Master Duel and you don't open a hand trap and your opponent makes a board that is entirely banned in the TCG. Like all of his cards are banned in the OCG, and it's like in a lot of ways Master Duel and TCG are very similar in that regard. Master Duel and OCG rather. Okay, so K9 I think is quite easily the weakest out of the new decks, but it's still making a showing at like, what was it? 7% and 6% in Crystron. And then also some other people are using the K9 engine in other decks. So it's pretty cool still. K9 Crystron. Let's look at that one. I understand roughly what pure K9 is about to do, but like K9 Crystron. K9 and Crystron have an interesting synergy that allows them to bridge into each other, creating a powerful, cohesive strategy that complements each other. K9 can bring out an early Ripper to negate the opponent's Nibiru before committing to the Crystron combo. Love that. When hit by the opponent's Maxi or Fuva, K9 Crystron can just play out of the K9 game plan, ending on Ripper and then using Izuna and Lupus to summon Nash Knight or Vimana on the opponent's turn. If the opponent has no response, then K9 Crystron would just play out the full combo. K9 provides a decent floor for the deck to pass on, while Crystron provides a high ceiling end board. Okay. That is a lot of steps. The end board consists of 7 disruptions. Ripper negates a monster effect that activates in hand or grave. Nash Knight attaches a face-up monster as material. Infinity negates a card. Dawndraxer negates a spell trap. Quarion Gondrax banishes up to 3 monsters. Cluster destroys 1 or 2 cards. Vimana negates a monster effect. Well, yeah, that seems pretty auto-win. That seems pretty auto-win. Dude, how? Hello? How many steps? Still less than 1 White Forest starter. Fair enough. Fair enough. Conclusion. The early OCG format is dominated by themes from the deck build packs. Malice from Crossover Breakers is still a top contender, while Dragontail, Yummy, and K9 from Justice Hunters have shown respectable results in the competitive scene. This is like a general thing. I mean, we've talked about this before, how powerful the deck build packs have become in terms of meta relevance, which in some ways I think is a good thing. It feels better to me when a deck build pack comes out for the decks to be like playable right out of the gate. I feel like it's bad if an archetype comes out and then it just requires more support before even being playable. On the other hand, I feel like right now in the OCG, it's almost only deck build pack archetypes, right? Like it feels like the core sets don't even matter that much. It feels like at the moment, the core sets are more just like add-ons to the deck build packs, right? It feels like the core sets have become the side sets to an extent, right? Am I the only one that feels that way? Because like at the moment, even in the TCG, right, we're playing Ryziel and Malice, and everyone like looking at Alliance Insight, we're just like, yeah, how does this impact Malice and Ryziel? Like, what's the support here for those 2 decks? What is the addition to Ryziel and Malice with this? Except for Schmidt. I mean, yeah, there's exceptions. It's just like an overall thing where you look at the breakdown, and for the most part, it's a lot of these deck build packs. Which I don't know how to feel about. Technically, I suppose it doesn't really matter, because ultimately what matters is how is the format, what are the decks that are meta, and is that cool? Like, are the decks cool? Because if a deck is cool for the format, then I personally don't really care where it releases. It's just something I've been noticing. I feel like it's also due to the fact that, like, they are focusing a lot on legacy support, right? In main sets these days. Like, main sets, I feel like their main purpose is no longer to release a bunch of new decks into the game, but rather, like, have a decent amount of legacy support for... I mean, how many different archetypes are getting legacy support for in main sets these days? Like 10 different ones or more? So, and that's not a bad thing, right? I do like when they give us legacy support. And so the side sets are the ones where it's like, okay, here's the focus on new archetypes, right? Like every single deck build pack, we know 3 completely new archetypes are entering the game and are supposedly, currently at least, meta relevant right out of the gate. And I feel like maybe that's a good mix. Maybe that's a good way to do it, right? Like main sets give you a whole bunch of like a mixed bag, some legacy support, some support for existing archetypes that are currently meta, some new stuff, lore archetype as well, and then the deck build pack is like the bread and butter of new Yu-Gi-Oh archetypes, right? Maybe it's fine that way. Maybe it's not a bad thing. It's just something I've been noticing, rather. new lore about to come through and wrench throw a wrench in this. I mean, that one remains to be seen, right? Like the new lore archetype, at least from the first wave, does not seem top tier. But of course, neither did Snake Eye. Snake Eye was also not top tier on the first wave, so yeah, I'm a little scared of that. Lore is cool. I agree with you. Lore is cool, but they still need to do some competitive balancing. So I'm scared.